Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Colonel Brian Bolton. We warmly welcome the family of Flight Sergeant Robert Haydon Malcolm, whose story will be told shortly. We warmly welcome Wing Commander Dr. Mary Ann Whiting, retired, representing the Air Force Association, and the Simpson Prize delegation. The Simpson Prize is a national essay competition for Year 9 and Year 10 students that focuses on the service of Australians in the First World War. The delegation, comprised of one winner and one runner-up from each state and territory, is currently participating in a 3-day program in Canberra. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and their families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Flight Sergeant Robert Haydon Malcolm. Robert Malcolm was born in Adelaide on the 11th of June 1916. The only son of Morris and Annie Malcolm, Robert grew up at Kangaroo Flat, just north of Adelaide, with his 4 sisters. Their father died of the influenza pandemic in 1919, leaving Annie to raise the 5 children alone. Known to Bob as his family, Robert attended Unley High School in Adelaide before studying accountancy, going on to work as an accountant at the Adelaide Electric Supply Company. Robert Malcolm enlisted in the Royal Australian Air Force on the 18th of June 1940. With few training spaces available for new airmen, he was put in the reserve until a place could be found for him. The following month, he married Gladys Beach at Scotch Church, Adelaide. Called up for service on 4th of January 1941, after initial training he mustered as a navigator, and in March was posted to the Air Observers School at Mount Gambier. The course was conducted on twin-engine Avro Ansons and introduced trainees to flying and navigation. After attending bombing and air gunnery school at Port Pirie, Malcolm was awarded his Air Observer's Badge on the 26th of July 1941 and finished his Australian-based training at RAF Base Nil in Victoria. Malcolm embarked for overseas service at Fremantle. Arriving in Egypt, he was posted to No. 70 RAF Operational Training Unit in Ismailia on the west bank of the Suez Canal. Malcolm crewed up with brothers Peter and Ronaldson Ewing. Peter as pilot and Ronaldson, the air wireless operator air gunner. In early 1942, Malcolm's crew were briefly posted to RAF Base Eastleigh in Kenya for further training. In February 1942, Malcolm's wife Gladys gave birth to a son who was named Robert, like his father. Letters to home show how thrilled Malcolm was to become a father. Writing to his brother, "At the moment of getting the cable, my heart nearly burst. No prouder father exists." Malcolm and his crew had completed their training and were allocated to their first operational unit, No. 11 Squadron, Royal Air Force, based in Colombo in Ceylon, today known as Sri Lanka. Arriving in early April, Malcolm and his crew formed part of a squadron that attacked Japanese shipping. In letters to his sisters, Malcolm described the enjoyable periods of leave he spends up in the hills, the spasms of homesickness he feels for his family, and his deep faith in God. He carried a small photograph of his wife and infant son everywhere, even when flying. Early in 1943, No. 11 Squadron moved to Feni, India, from where it flew bombing raids against Japanese bases in Burma. In a letter to his sister, Malcolm described the feeling that he was finally contributing to the war. He continued to fly with the Ewing brothers, describing them as the best sort of pals. On the 18th of April, Malcolm was the navigator in Blenheim aircraft Z-5980. Having completed a raid on Japanese troop concentrations in Burma and returned to its base at Feni, the Blenheim was signalled to its dispersal bay. Malcolm left the cockpit to assist the ground crew in marshalling the pilot into the narrow dispersal pen. Ducking under the main plane, he walked behind the spinning propeller, which caught his parachute harness and dragged him in from the rear. The engines were immediately switched off and an ambulance was called. But by then, Malcolm had received multiple and catastrophic head injuries and was dead. He was 26 years of age. An inquiry was held into the incident, which determined it was an awful accident and there was no one to blame. In 1948, Gladys Malcolm received a photograph of the simple wooden cross marking her husband's grave. She was assured that the cross was of a temporary nature only and would be replaced by a permanent headstone. Today, Flight Sergeant Robert Malcolm's remains rest in the Myanmar War Cemetery in Bangladesh under the inscription, "Thy will be done." Robert Malcolm's name is listed on the honour roll to my left, among 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Flight Sergeant Robert Haydon Malcolm. He gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall not grow old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them. Lest we forget.
We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.